Hey, gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, and today I am so excited to introduce to you one of my heroes. Now, he's someone who leads a movement that we've been following very closely for some time now. He's tirelessly worked to free rural patriots from the ideological tyranny of an incurably woke state government, and he's inspiring like minded patriots all across the nation to do the same in their own states. Mike McCarter. He is the leader of a movement that's literally sweeping across Eastern Oregon in what's called the Greater Idaho Movement. As many of you know, I've been covering this amazing movement since the first 5 referendums passed back in 2021. Mike and I were talking about this earlier. It was May 18th. I could still remember because it was my wife's birthday. And I remember talking about it with her. And those 5 referendums, as it turned out, was just the beginning. Since then, counties making up upwards of over half the state's landmass have voted to secede from Oregon. And we're going to get the full scoop from one of the key leaders of this amazing movement. So, Mike, it is an absolute honor to have you on the show.
You know, Dr. Steve, it tickles me to be able to speak to you in person because I've watched you so many times on your podcasts and on YouTube, and people send me links, say you got to see what he's saying, you got to see what's going on here. So to be in person and talk to you is it's a blessing. It really is.
The blessing is all mine, Mike. And I know our viewers would want me to say this to you from the get-go on their behalf. You are a hero to so many of our viewers on this channel. I mean, people all across the nation are rooting for you. I told you this when we were talking before the interview. Yeah. I hear it every month. We got the Courageous Patriots Insiders Club. Hardly a month goes by without somebody asking me, so what's the latest on the Greater Idaho movement? I mean, everyone across the nation is following you. So I believe you've won 12 elections thus far, right? Wallauda County was the latest one a few weeks back.
Correct. Yes.
For those who don't know, tell us about the movement. What is the Greater Idaho movement and what inspired it?
Well, we started in the fall of 2019 as a group of people from several rural counties came together at a pizza place in Lapine just to talk about the direction that Oregon was taking government-wise and what could we do about it. And we, there had been some talk, there had been some editorials about our relationship and our values, how closely they align with Idaho for years. And we thought, well, now wait a minute. We're not trying to create a new state. What if we could, get the governments from Oregon and Idaho to come together and move that border to the base of the Cascades, which would take and align Eastern Oregon folks with traditional valued like-minded people of Idaho. And so we looked at the process, and the state government was really pretty restrictive on trying to find out, you can't run a poll legislatively or anything through a petition. So we found out that we had to ask the voters of each of these counties, get the petition signed and put it on the ballot. Would they like their county commissioners to start talking about, to promote it, to take it upstairs to the legislators and so on? And we're not outsiders of Oregon. We are the rural people that live here. This is totally grassroots. And that's how the process started. And so in our first big rally in March of 2020, we had over 400 people show up at this rally, and it blew us away. And then 3 days later, COVID shut everything down.
Yeah.
So, we followed this. We've taken county by county, sometimes multiple counties at a particular election. And right now we're up at 12 counties that have agreed with us that this needs to be brought up. This needs to be handled through the legislature. And, as a side note, these county votes don't do anything legislatively
Hmm.
to the
Hmm.
Oregon legislature, but they send a 60% approval average to the
Right.
state legislature and say, you better do something with this or else.
Yeah, you claim to be democratic and defending democratic ideals. Well, here you go. Here's the voice of the people here. I mean, it makes total sense. We were talking about this again before we went on air here. It seems to me that Eastern Oregon is the very definition of the maxim. 51% of democracy can often be 49% tyranny. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's one thing if we all agree on, we all have basic value, share the values of faith, family, and freedom, and then we disagree on one policy versus another, or one representative versus another. It's a whole different thing to be governed by a completely alien worldview, right? I mean, you are consistently and irrevocably being forced to live under policies and ideologies that you want no part of, like you said, sometimes by margins of 40% or so, 60% majorities. For those who don't know, Mike obviously does, but just to really drive this home, Tina Kotek, who's Oregon's far left governor, she won re-election uh, back in November, despite the fact that she lost 29 of Oregon's 36 counties. She loses 8 out of 10 counties, and yet she still wins the election. Actually,
Mm-hmm.
I came across a stat. I'm sure you already know this, but if you were able to get rid of Multnomah County, just one county alone, if you were to exclude that, Christine Drazen, the Republican, she would have won by 10 points.
Yep. Yep.
so so obviously there's a radical political disconnect here between Western and Eastern Oregon. And so when all is said and done, just for our listeners to get this now, all you're trying to do here, when all is said and done, is democratically resolve this radical disconnect so that you can actually benefit from representational government, right? Is that it?
Agreed. Agreed. Our goal is to get this through both houses, legislative houses in Oregon and Idaho, and get it up to the U.S. Congress for approval. That's our goal with it. And maybe, maybe across the nation, the answer to this urban rural situation that is not only going on in Oregon but in other
For sure.
places
Right.
is adjusting the borders.
Yeah.
That's simple to
Right.
it. Now, I don't mean to simplify the process because it's going to be a mountain to climb, and there's details that have to be hashed out, and they can be hashed out with it. So we're just keep pushing on.
It's amazing. How is the polling in Oregon and Idaho? How do Idahoans think? What do they think about this proposal?
Well, in Idaho, we ran a poll a little over year and a half ago there, and we polled mainly the Republican voters because that's a Republican state.
Yeah, I was going to say, are there
I
any
mean,
other voters there?
right. Well, we know how the Democrat voters would vote. I mean,
Right,
we'll
right.
probably poll there. And 59% of the people were in favor of it.
Awesome.
26% of the people were against it. But the amazing thing that came out of it is 15% were undecided.
Hmm.
And so
Interesting.
that gave us some indication that, okay, we need to work on the education process over there, to take that 15% and move it one way or the other. And we
Right.
believe it would move towards a positive side.
Oh, definitely. I think when they see how it's part of this larger trajectory, exactly what you're saying, sort of this urban rural divide, that's the center of the culture wars when all's said and done. So,
Now,
as I understand, yeah,
excuse me,
please.
let me interject you about Oregon. We ran a poll in Northwest Oregon, and that includes Portland. And that's where 79% of the population of the whole state is located, is up in that Northwest pocket. And our results were, to me, were amazing. Now, not amazing that people were overwhelmingly excited about it. But you know what? It came out just the other way, that people weren't upset about it.
Hmm.
They weren't. It was almost a push for and against. But the real amazing thing that came out there is that 3% of the people, when they realized that Northwest Oregon supports Eastern Oregon by more than $500 a wage earner per year, only 3% of the people said, we'll do that. 97% said, no way, we're not going to pay that.
Right.
So to me, that was really a revealing fact that
Yeah.
went in with it.
Yeah, hit him in the wallet, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, guys, you'll save money. Everybody wins. We get our values. You get your paycheck. Hey, is it right? Yeah. No, this is the first time I think in over 100 years
Mhm.
that counties would switch states, and we know the proposal requires support from both the Idaho and Oregon legislatures as well as Congress. So, how, based on what you're seeing, the lay of the land there, how do you see this getting through those institutions successfully?
Well, again, the ultimate goal is getting this to the U.S. Congress and getting it approved with it. And, we don't think there's going to be a problem with that because it's a blue state and a red state that come into a contractual agreement,
Right.
to adjust the border. And borders have been adjusted
Right.
hundreds of times. Now, maybe not in quite the volume we're talking about right here in acreage, but Congress approved things like that. So we're not trying to create a new state. We're not trying to add two more senators. And one U.S. representative who represents Eastern Oregon mainly now would shift over to Idaho.
Right.
And Oregon would only lose one half of electoral vote
Mm.
out of 538 electoral votes. So the Idaho legislature this year, House of Representatives, passed a bill to open talks up with the Oregon legislature. We moved that over to the Senate side of the Idaho legislature and ran out of time before the end of their session. But we polled the senators in Idaho and we had the votes to get it passed.
Wow.
Now, on the Oregon side, that's a stumbling block. They have put up a wall, and I kind of believe that maybe their thinking is, well, if we don't talk about it, it'll just go away.
That's right.
I you know I'm not buying that at all. Uh,
No.
what it's going to take is the people from both states. Idaho folks, contact your state representatives, your state senators. Let them know how you feel about this and what you want done. And in Oregon, that is the only way we're going to get this legislative body to open up
Right.
with it and start making some movement there. And that's the people, their constituents who vote them in, have to call, write letters, emails. I don't care, faxes, whatever, but bury them in your comments.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's just all we hear from the progressive left is how they're the defenders of democracy, and here you have democracy in direct action. This is direct democracy, and they're at this point, to at least it seems, ignoring you. Again, that seems to be just the pattern of Multnomah County to
Oh,
the rest of Oregon. Just ignore them, pretend they don't exist, and have them
right.
pay their taxes and the like.
The question I ask is, what are you afraid of?
Yeah,
What are you afraid of in this issue? When you start looking at the details, you'll start seeing the benefits
yeah,
that will come out of it.
yeah, and also just or the retort. Well, if you love Idaho so much, just go move there. I mean, that's not the point. You share the values of
Mhm.
Idaho, but you are Oregonians. You've lived, you've breathed, you've buried. Your families are a part of this land
Mhm.
for generations. Why should you have to leave because of Antifa? you know,
Oh,
in Portland, for heaven's sakes.
build a wall between Portland and us. I'm sorry.
Yeah. That's right. Well, maybe Antifa. You remember Antifa stand? That's the first thing they did was build a border of some kind
Mhm.
for their little Marxist experiment there. Mike, have you been surprised at your success? I mean, so many patriots have told me how encouraged they are about this, just this proactive uprising of rural conservatives against an overreaching state capital. Did you have any sense of the discontent and how widespread it was when you first spearheaded this?
I think we understood there was a discontent because when we came together as a group of people from rural Oregon counties, we all had the similar, explain the same things that were bothering us. But there was no playbook to follow.
Right,
Nobody's really done something like this yet,
right,
and yet we're grassroots folks. We're rural people. I'm born and raised in Oregon 76 years ago outside the Portland area. I won't go back in there again. If
right,
I can help it, I won't go that way.
right.
So I think I would, Dr. Steve, I would rather say it this way. We are blessed, and we believe that God is honoring. He has a plan for all of this, and we're
Amen.
putting it in His hands to open the doors and close the doors that need to be done. Do we have a crystal ball of how long this is going to take and where it's going to go and so on? No, because things are moving so fast in this
Right,
world, in this day and age. How can you plan? Well, 2 years out, we're going to do this or that or
right,
whatever. But, our big problem right now is convincing Western Oregon why it's beneficial to let us go.
yeah,
It is. And there are some incredible benefits to it. But, some politicians are power hungry and they want to
mm,
maintain control and they want to maintain their land and stuff like this. But when you start laying it out to them, and this is why I say, what are you afraid of? Let us lay this out to you on it. You might be losing control over Eastern Oregon, but you also at the same time improve your control over Western Oregon because
absolutely.
the most recent gridlock issue in the Oregon legislature would not exist
Right,
at all with
right.
it. And we're dealing with like Measure 114, probably one of the most radical gun bills that ever came out, and that didn't go through the legislature. That
Wow.
came from the urban people in Portland who felt that the way to protect ourselves is to ban guns.
Right.
Well, when you pass a law like that, we live in counties where sometimes we have two or three deputies that cover 5,000 square
Of
miles,
course. Yeah. Yeah.
and we can't protect ourselves because we have to do these same gun things.
Yeah. Yeah.
So um, Oregon, right now, the people in Western side don't really understand that they're
Right.
supporting Eastern Oregon by $690 per year per wage earner. And this came out of a Moscow, Idaho economic analysis of this, how the border change would work with it. And so they could take that money and put it into their own programs.
Exactly. Yeah.
Now, Oregon's budget is based on income tax. Property tax stays with the counties, but the income tax is what funds things through the Oregon legislature. You don't have that many workers to speak of overall compared to the total population of Oregon. So you're not losing a lot of income tax and the land doesn't really matter. And beside that, only 3% of Eastern Oregon is under Oregon state control.
Hmm. Wow.
Most of it is federal
Right.
and or private, and
Private.
that doesn't change.
Right. Wow.
So,
Wow, you're really spelling out the win-win here. Yeah,
oh,
but I think you hit it. They're power hungry and
oh
they
yeah,
don't want to give patriots a victory. They sense that. They sense that patriots across the country would be rejoicing with this and they don't want. You can't have that, Mike. You can't have that.
no. And Dr. Steve, we're trying to do this legally.
Right.
we're following the statutes. Dot, but it's amazing the hoops that you have to jump through
Yeah.
to
Oh
stay
yeah.
within the state laws to
Of
follow
course.
this. And
Of
when we
course.
get done, with this, and I believe when we're done with the border moving, we can look back at it and said we did it the right way.
Yeah.
We weren't a BLM. We weren't
Right.
an Antifa. We
Right.
didn't burn anything down, destroy any people's properties or
Right.
nothing. We did
Right.
it by the voice of the people.
Exactly. Exactly. Oh, I love it. Mike, how can those outside of Oregon help? How can Idahoans specifically help? And how can those like me in far flung states like Delaware, just 20 minutes away from where Biden naps, uh, how could we help make Greater Idaho a reality?
Again, we hear about it from people all across the United States. And in fact, I've had comments and donations out of Australia. I've
Wow.
had interviews out of Russia,
Wow.
interviews out of Germany, Denmark, Japan. Um, what we did a little over a week ago, we launched Team Greater Idaho. We're taking this nation and worldwide.
Awesome.
And what we're asking people to do, go to greateridaho.org, click on Team GI, and join the team. And what that involves is $10 for 10 months. That's all we're
Great.
asking for.
Wow.
And when they do that, we send them out a 3 by 5 foot Idaho flag. We
Awesome.
send them out a logo with Team Greater Idaho as a team member. And we ask them, put your flag up and take a picture. Take a picture of it and send it to us, and we'll put it on our social media sites and so on. And pretty soon you're going to see Idaho flags flying all over the country, if not in places in the world with it. And, we talked about communication. You talk about your club and how hard it is to get the words across in the true communications. When they go on to greateridaho.org, sign up for the emails. Now, team members of Team Greater Idaho, when we kick out a press release that goes out to all the media, they get that press release first. So they hear what's actually going on from the inside out on it. So, you know,
Awesome.
and then again, Idaho folks, contact your legislators.
Mm-hmm.
Oregon folks, contact your legislators. And if somebody knows a large donor, a donor that wants to contribute to see this go with it, contact us, please. I hate to say money is the key, but it does take money
It does
to
take
move
money.
something forward like this.
It certainly
It
does.
it now all of us are volunteers. We don't get paid. I don't want another job. I'm retired. So sort of, I guess.
Yeah, right. If
But
this is retirement, Mike, I don't know what work is, man.
I asked my wife about this when they said, Mike, would you take over and lead the charge on moving Oregon border and now Citizens for Greater Idaho? So I went to my wife and I said, what do you think, honey? She says, the only thing I'm going to ask you is if you get too far into it and you start stressing out, I'm going to ask you to back off. You better
Mm.
back off. Yes, dear. I'll do that.
But I love it. But I'm hearing it when you say you're giving it all to God.
Oh,
This is all soaked in prayer, which is how this nation started originally, right? As a
absolutely.
new Jerusalem,
Yep.
and you're giving it all to Him, and He's going to, and you're being faithful
Oh,
with your time and your talent, and your treasure, and look at what you've done so far. 60, like you said, 60% of the land mass of Oregon is voted to join up with Idaho. I mean, it's astonishing.
I asked my pastor the same question I asked my wife, and he was quiet for quite a bit. And he says, I don't see anything wrong in what you're doing. He says, the trap is going to be if you put this movement before Jesus in your life.
Wow.
Christ is first. And
Amen.
we honor that. the whole
Yeah.
group of the leadership team. Christ has to be first in everything we do. And that's our core value.
Faith, family, freedom. Freedom follows faith. Absolutely.
And then the fourth thing is self sufficiency.
Mm,
We don't want the government to
right.
take care of us from cradle to grave.
No.
We can take care of ourselves.
Amen.
Yep.
Amen. You are free men. I'm hearing Braveheart here. This is beautiful, gang. You're hearing it here. Greater Idaho. They are serious, and with your help, hundreds of thousands of patriots can be free from woke tyranny once and for all. Be sure to visit greateridaho.org to donate, volunteer, and learn more about this amazing movement today. The link is in the description below. And what I love so much about Mike and Greater Idaho Movement is that they are walking the Patriots' path. As I said, this nation was founded by those seeking a new beginning, literally building a new Jerusalem. They did not sit around wallowing over the despotic, tyrannical circumstances. They stood up, and with God's help, they did something about it. And that's what Mike and the countless dedicated volunteers are doing here with the Greater Idaho Movement, and they're changing this nation as a result. So make sure to click on that link below, find out what you can do to help make Greater Idaho a reality. Mike, God's richest blessings on you, my friend, and everyone here. I know, I can tell you, your fans stretch beyond your wildest imaginations. They love you. They love your faithfulness, and you have all the support in the world from us.
Thank you, Dr. Steve. And again, you are a blessing to our movement. Your voice out there is, I can't measure how much it means to us there. And, I love talking to you. I would love to sit around a potbelly stove with a cup of coffee. I won't talk about the alcohol side, but, a cup of coffee and just shoot the bull.
Absolutely.
Yes.
That's it. Yeah, I think it was, C.S. Lewis said there's nothing more wonderful than two friends around a fire. It is. So, yeah.
I agree with you.
Absolutely. God bless, Mike. Thanks so
God
much.
bless you. Yes, thank you.